Dr. Bortolozzo holds degrees in veterinary medicine and a doctorate in physiopathology of animal reproduction. Currently, Dr. Bortolozzo is a full professor at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. Dr. Bortolozzo focuses his research on swine reproduction and management with a group of approximately 30 undergraduate and graduate students. Today, he will be discussing with us breeding herd mortality, opportunities for measurable impact, a perspective from Brazil. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bortolozzo.
Now is better? No? Perhaps I go otherwise. And now? No? It's okay? Okay. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be here, back in Ames. My last time here in Ames was 20 years ago. I came exactly to this building for the IPVS meeting. And I realized today in the morning when I arrived here, I was here for this meeting. Okay, I thank you also, Jason Ross, for the invitation to be here. Yeah, I'm going to share with you some information, and my objective is to give you a perspective from South America, yeah, regarding Brazil and also Argentina. This is the outline of my presentation today. I split it actually in two parts, a bit about pre-weaning mortality and sow mortality. But before I start my talk, I wanted to show you where I come from the southernmost state of Brazil, yeah, and I work, Brazil has 27 states, I came from this one. I work for a federal university that is located in the capital of the state. Let's gonna take a look on our production system in Brazil to give you a perspective about that. We have 2 million sows, yeah, in technified production systems, and around 70% of our sows, they are located in these 3 states here in the south, yeah, and this is zone 1, 2, and 3 is the intern compartmentalization for classical swine fever. Yeah, perhaps you guys might heard that we have some outbreaks here in Northeast, but this area, all these 3 zones, they are international recognized as free of classical swine fever, and we have no movements from animals from this area to here. In this area here, we have around the other 0.6 million sows, more or less in this part of the country, and here in north and northeast, we have around almost backyard production. Yep. The production is concentrated. You can see here the companies and the number of sows. Yeah, we have almost 60% of the sows in these 13 companies here. Yeah. Well, I did also a table to compare a little bit Brazil with US. And then perhaps you can understand a little bit better the perspective that I'm going to show you during my presentation. You can see here the number of sows. I put also disease status. We have no PRRS and no PED in Brazil. Yep. We live in heaven. Huh? We do not know. We do not know that, but yep, we have no PRRS and no PED. And as I told you, some outbreaks from classical swine fever in this area outside of that I showed you before. The infrastructure, we have also climatization in some production systems, but the majority is natural ventilation with curtain management.
and the temperature variation is not so is huge, but not so like you guys here in Iowa or in Minnesota in this area, or you guys produce pigs. You can see here, and our big problem is heat stress. In south, we have this problem around 3 months in a year, and in the Middle East area, a little bit more. Worker direct in the production compared to the number of sows, we have, I put this data here for you guys. I don't know really if it is correct, but our data is more or less 1 worker per this amount of sows. There is a range. There is a variation depending on the part of the country that you are. Yeah. And here you can see the pre-weaning mortality that we have and the sow mortality.
Fernando?
Yep.
The number of people also, it's very interesting to say that we don't have as much automatization in Brazil compared to here.
Yeah, that's correct. And we have more people, it depends on the farm, yeah, but we have more people available to do the job. Okay. Well, that's the first part of my talk, pre-weaning mortality. This is the data from AgriNest. It's a company based in Brazil. They have this benchmarking here since 2008, 14 years. In the last year, they have around 1.5 million sows in the database. And you can see that the pre-weaning mortality remains almost the same during all these 14 years, around 9%. But in the last year, the top 50 sows, they have 6% of pre-weaning mortality. And if you see here, the born alive is almost 0.16 born alive per year, we increased, or 0.24 in the top 50 farms. Well, about pre-weaning mortality, we know that a lot of things are involved in this issue, not only from the sow side, from the piglet side, but also to the environment and the management. And well, I put a Brazilian flag to see, for you guys to understand when I'm showing you data from our country. For those that do not know, this is the Brazilian flag. Well, when the piglets die, we have, this is a database from our lab, 40%, around 40% in the first 3 days of life, and almost 80% in the first week of life. And the main causes are crushing and low viability. I think that's nothing new here. If you take a look in the same database, the birth weight of the animals that died during this period, in this period here, first 3 or first week of age, is lower compared to the animals that died during this period here, and the animals that were weaned. In this evaluation, we have classes of birth weight. On average, this database has 4.7% of mortality. And if you take a look here, 25% of the deaths, they belong to this first class of birth weight. Yeah, and if we take together all these 3 classes here, we have 70% from the deaths. It means birth weight is an important issue in that. And well, the tricky question is how to reduce mortality. It is not an easy answer. I'm going to share with you some information regarding farming assistance and day one care. Yeah. Farming assistance in Brazil is, I do not have an exact number, but the majority of the farms, they have a 24 hours assistance from the farmers. It is a possibility to reduce stillborns, increase vitality, and identify sows with difficulties.
Drying and warming the piglets is an important point during this first day care. We have this data here with the temperature 24 hours after birth. We have 4 classes, and you can see that the odds ratio for mortality for this group of animals that were not able to achieve or to recover the temperature 24 hours after birth, they have a higher odds ratio, 5-6 times higher than this compared group. This is also data from our group. You can see here that the low birth weight animals, this line, this purple line here, they need more time to recover, and sometimes they do not recover the temperature like the other litter mates. This is a work here from US, from the University of Illinois. You can see here that they have 3 classes of birth weight, and you can see here that light piglets, they have over 24 hours this temperature collected, and you can see here that in red, light piglets, they need more time, and they do not achieve the same temperature than the litter mates. Drying is an effective measure to work and to have a recovery in the body temperature, as you can see here from the same work. You have the control group and the group that they dry the animals. But when they associated, sorry, that is a table, they have a control group warming and drying and warming. When they associated both, they have the most effective intervention. Well, this is one point then from day 1 care. A second point is colostrum ingestion. Yeah? It's an important measure. This is a data set from our group. You can see here piglet birth weight and the colostrum intake. We measure colostrum intake based on there is an equation for that, and we measure that based on the weight gain in the first 24 hours of age. In this data set, we do not have low birth weight piglets. It means below 1 kilo. And in our systems, we have around 15% sometimes below 1 kilogram. But in this data set, unfortunately, we do not have this kind of animals. We have from 1 kilo up to 1.7. Black dots are piglets that died up to 42 days of age, and white dots are animals that remain alive. And if you take this corner here, it means low birth weight animals that ingested a low amount of colostrum, you are going to see 30% of mortality. Yeah? And if you take all the rest of the groups, doesn't matter if they ingested the high birth weight piglets, doesn't matter if they ingested low or higher amount of colostrum. On average, we had a mortality below 4%. It means colostrum ingestion is very important for preventing mortality. You can see here this data from Thailand. Here, actually there is 2 equations for colostrum that measure colostrum productivity. They use the second one compared to our group. But if you see here, animals that ingested below 400 or above 400 grams, they have a huge differences on preventing mortality. And also here is not so big to read, but it's rectal temperature 24 hours after birth. And you can see here 3 classes, and the black column belong to the animals that ingested a low amount of colostrum, lower than 400 grams. And you can see here that preventing mortality, especially to that animals that were not able to recover the body temperature is significantly higher. Okay, there is some works that show that there is a minimal amount of colostrum for survival, for ensure survival, and also a minimal amount of colostrum to have a good performance. We have this data here. You can see classes of colostrum intake. We took out here the piglet birth weight, but you can see here that there is a drop, yeah, on of the mortality when the animals ingested more colostrum. But it depends a lot of the birth weight. If you see here this data also from our lab, you see the probability of death up to 42 days of age, yeah? And then we have 4 classes of piglets based, 3 classes based on birth weight. You can see here high birth weight, intermediate, and low. And just to remember, we do not have animals below 1 kilogram in the data set. And you can see here, yeah, the animals from the intermediate and low group, they almost have the same results or the same probability of death compared to the high group when they ingested almost 300 grams of colostrum. Means colostrum ingestion is a very important thing for survival, not only for survival for sure, but for survival is important. Another thing besides dry and warming and colostrum ingestion is the cross-fostering. We try to minimize the cross-fostering inside of the farms, especially when we have some sanitary issues. Yeah, but with hyperprolific sows, sometimes we need to do the uniformization of the litter, not only in the number but also in the size of the piglets, avoiding to remain high birth weight piglets with low birth weight piglets in the same litter. When we do the cross fostering, we have a window. I put here a window is in green, is the window where we recommend to do the cross fostering. Here you can see the reasons for that, and we avoid to do cross fostering the first 6 to 8 hours after birth. We recommend that the animals are allowed to ingest colostrum from their own mother, yeah, because based on the cellular immunity, it is important. And we do not recommend to do this cross-fostering after 24 hours of age. If you see this data here, you are going to see that until up to 24 hours, we have the lowest pre-weaning mortality. Yeah. And the last point that I would like to share with you is not a data from our group, it's also a data from the University of Illinois. We are working on this subject. Perhaps during the Lehman conference we'll be able to share some data on this, but at the moment I do not have. But the number of functional teats and related with the number of piglets that we have in litter, especially avoiding to or try to reduce the number of nurse sows that we have inside of the farrowing room. You see here they have a control group, the same number of functional teats and piglets. Here on the left, -2 piglets. This is not so real in the production, but on the right side, they have 2 extra pigs per functional teat. They have more piglets than teats. And it is interesting to take a look on the number or litter size here after cross-fostering and the litter size at weaning. Yeah, they did not find statistical significance here, but perhaps if they increase this number or this the sample size. Look, they have 0.6 piglets more here in this group. For sure, they have a higher mortality in this treatment. Moving on to the weaning weight, if you see this data, remember here they have this number of liters, number of piglets at weaning, and you can see here that the weaning weight was the same. Yeah. This is interesting. Perhaps we should go further doing some experiments on that, especially if we can take a collective lactation, I mean the piglets having access more than one sow. Doing a get-together here in this first part of my presentation from the south side, it's important colostrum and milk production. From the piglet side, vitality, yeah, and birth weight. Birth weight is it's not an easy to increase. We need to work together with the genetic companies on this part. And here from the environmental management and day one care, especially if we can improve all these things that I told you in this first part of my talk. Okay, then moving now to the sow mortality and factors that are associated, especially from our perspective. I put here on the table 6 points. I'm not going to I try to concentrate this part of my talk in these 6 points. The first one is birth weight. We did this PhD a couple of years ago, and my student, he followed around 1,500 piglets, 1,500 sows that went up to Ferrin 3. Yeah? You can have an idea here of the piglet birth weight on average later, and the total born that we have at this trial. And for sure, we split it later on this 1,500 sows in 8 groups, yeah, based on birth weight classes, and we have around 12.5% of the animals in each group. And as expected, we had more mortality in the low birth weight classes. It's not new, but it's interesting to take a look on that. We started at birth with almost 1,500 sows, and we selected 835 at 170 days of age. But here is interesting to see, if we take that together, the 8 classes of birth weight and the days from birth up to 3rd fairing. You can see that low birth weight animals, low birth weight classes, they remain less days in the herd. It's also interesting, I'm a repro guy, and I try to look also from the reproduction side. This low birth weight classes at first fairing, they have a reduction in the number of total born, and taking together all the 3 fairing 1, 2, and 3, we have a significant effect on low birth weight classes. They produce almost 4 piglets less than the others. The second point that I included here as associated factors are the herd size. I took this data from a group here in Brazil that they work on production. They share the information with me, and you can see here the herd size, and with an increase in the herd size, we have an increase in the mortality. This is the situation that we have. And in this data set, 42 farms, they have more than 10% of mortality. The other point that the guys shared with me is productive performance based on the number of piglets weaned per sow per year in each farm. Yeah, each column is one farm, and you can see here when the farm produced plus 32 piglets per sow per year, almost 30, 26.6. You can see here that they have no big impact on the mortality rate, at least in this information. Yeah. The third point as associated problems or associated factors that I included is environmental temperature. It plays an important role for us, as I told you before. In Brazil, the heat stress is a huge problem, especially in the middle part, in the middle west of the country. And in this situation, you can see here, it's small to see, but believe me here, each line is 1 month. And here is January, February, and March. This is our summer. And you can see that we have, during this period of time, an increase in the mortality. And in this trial here, was not in our lab, but was in Brazil. They have three farms from the same system, and one of them with no climatization, the second one only climatization in the farming room, and the third one climatization at all, also in the gestation one. You can see a decrease when we control the temperature. Another point is the stage when the mortality occurs. And it is interesting to take a look here that almost half of the mortality in this data set occurred during the farrowing room, periparturient sow or lactation sow. Yeah. This is interesting, and I'm going to show you this data later on, because the people from our pathology, they included a pathologist inside, a student that is a pathologist inside of the farm, and the guy did a lot of necropsies, and I'm going to share you the causes that they found in this situation. Again, back to the table that I showed you at the beginning of my presentation. Here you have a data set of 88 farms. Yeah, the annual mortality was on average 8%. The top 10% was around 4% of mortality. And compare with your scenario, I took this from Jason's presentation a couple of years ago at the Lehman conference. If we take a line of 8%, perhaps only this bottom 4 or 5 farms, they remain out of our average from that data set. Well, this pathologist, he did necropsies inside of the farm, and if you see here, almost 75% of the causes of death, they were related with locomotor, digestive, or reproductive. It's not so different compared with you. Just to take a look on small detail in reproductive system, you can see here 28%, and from that, almost 19% are related with POP. Yeah, you can see here some pictures. If we take digestive system, gastric ulcers and liver lobe torsion was the major cause that they found.
And the last group, locomotor, was suppurative arthritis. Well, and strategies to reduce mortality. I have to take a look on the time because I cannot speak English so fast as I speak my mother language. And if I start to speak fast, you are yeah. Me too. Well, let's gonna take a look on the strategies. I took this slide from a presentation that I did in 2018 at the Midwest meeting, yeah, at the Billy Day Symposium during the meeting. And this group, they gave me this data. They started at this moment to do some strategies related to whether they try to reduce mortality. The farm had up to this point around 9 to 10% of historical rate, and they were able to reduce to 6 to 7%. I'm going to comment on that during the next slides. And in this farm is a 4,700 sows farms with 180 sows per employee. But just to be quick. One point that they worked on it is to do a daily inspection of all animals, all sows inside of the farm. Sow must stand, be activated during this inspection. It's similar to the presentation that we had before. Yeah? Check every animal every day if they are eating, vomiting, health, locomotor, and tag the animals that have problems. Identify inside of the farm a person, a medicator or caretaker, a person that has the skills to do this job. Yeah? That is responsible for medication, and when this person is not doing or is not in the farm, the others can update him about the situation. And to have a hospital pens also, especially if you have stalls. And then I took this, I'm not going to detail this presentation because it was the presentation before, but Giovanni shared that with us in our annual meeting a couple of weeks, and Dr. Rademacher did this presentation last week during the IPVS conference in Rio. I'm going through this part, yeah. But you saw this slide before, perhaps for the people that came only for my talk and did not see the talk before. During doing this daily inspection, they were able to reduce, you have here the time before and the time after the evaluation, and they were able to reduce 4% mortality from 16 to 12%. Well, it is an opportunity. The other part is water and feed importance. You have here I put a sow life weight just to do a quick illustration. The kilograms that the sow weigh, the amount of feed that the sow consumed, and the amount of water that the sow must consume. And sometimes we put the water not in our as an important point in the production. I mean, not only the quality of the water, but also the quantity, and also for us, especially regarding heat stress problems, the temperature of the water. Yeah? I mean, sometimes, well, we need to inspect that to see if you have water for the animals. That it is an important task. And I'm going to move to this part here, facilities, floors, quality, climatization, group housing. I'm not going to detail this part because you guys are further on group housing compared with us. I would say that the US is so 2-3 years further implementing this management. We are doing also based on the pressure from the consumers. Another point that plays an important role in the mortality is guilt flow, guilt replacement. Yeah, we need to have an adequate flow of guilts to avoid the retention of a sow that has a higher odds ratio to die or to be killed. And it's important to have a good quality guilts, not only from the health, but also from body development. Yeah?
Yes, I told you I am a repro guy, and I have some data here from our group. This is the weight at insemination in kilograms during a stocking of a farm. You can see here that they had problems during the stocking. They had very heavy animals at insemination, not in the target like the left column. And for sure, if you do that, you have problems with retention, and you have more animals that are killed due to locomotor problems. They are so heavy. And from the nutrition point, I'm not a nutritionist, but avoid overweight is important, not only regarding the things that I told you in the slide before, but also, you need more energy for maintenance if you have heavier animals. Identify off-feed animals, water, I told you before. Minimize lactational catabolism, especially in premipro sows. This is a huge problem, especially in heat stress situation. And I put here bump feeding and retention because we did a trial on that. We worked with a PhD student in our group, and we published some papers. This one is a paper where we did a dose response in gilts. Yeah, we gave this amount of feed, a typical gestation diet, corn, soybean gestation diet, and you can see here the amounts that we gave from day 90 up to farrowing. Yeah. This is almost 1,000 gilts in this trial. It's hard to, we had a minimal effect on birth weight using bump feeding. It's not only this data, we have more data on that, but it's not the objective of our talk today. But a second point is colostrum yield that goes to the first part of my talk. We had a linear effect on that. If you look, the animals that ingested more feed produced less colostrum. This is one point. And the second and last point from this trial is that we follow the gilts up to farrowing 2, 3, and 4. And you can see here that we had no effect on the retention in these 4 groups. And here you can see in this line, no effect also on days to removal. It's okay. And the last point that I included here is a necessity to have a precise recording of the mortality. I know that it's not easy to do that, but I included here because if you wanted to do some evaluation later on, you need precise data. Take-home messages. Oh, it's not easy to compare 2 different situations, as I told you before, but we can learn from each other a lot of things. And a second point from my take-home messages is about pre-weaning mortality. As I told you, if you do always the same thing, you are going to get the same results. Yeah. And in my opinion, to improve day 1 care is a key point to reduce pre-weaning mortality. Drying, colostrum, and warming. Yeah. And if you can increase also the number of farrowing assistants inside of the farm, is also interesting because you can start earlier doing this day 1 care. No? Birth weight is important, but it's much more related with the genetic, in my opinion. And cross-fostering, we talked before, we recommended the cross-fostering when necessary in this window of 6 up to 24 hours after birth. And the last point is source mortality. Yeah, facilities is an important thing. Correct flow of guilds, nutrition, yeah, daily inspection. Identify a person that is going to evaluate it and be responsible for that, and the precise recording of mortality. And then the last part of my talk, I would like to acknowledge my co-authors, my colleagues at university, my PhD student that helped me with this presentation, the guy from Atual Tech that shared some data with us, our industry partners from Master, is a company inside of Brazil. We work a lot together with them, and Grosseries PIC. And also our industry partners inside of the university, research and scholarship that we have, university partners, not only from this part of this presentation, but the other trials that we run inside of Brazil, here in the US, and the guys from Germany that we also work together, and our team. Yep. The guys, they are happy. I hope they are. We have around 30 people that are working with us, undergrad and grad students, and yeah, they do the job, and I'm here only to talk the results. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, we'll take one quick question. Oh.
Fernando, the common area of that cell mortality is pre-faro, lactation, early faro. And I've talked to Rafael some, and I know you're looking at either nutrition or management strategies in and around that period. Any words of wisdom for us to look at there or to try?
I think that, during this part, at least for us, we avoid to have animals with difficulties at farrowing. If we talk from guilds, avoid overweight. If in this trial that I showed you, we had overweighted animals, we had more necessity for assistance, more stillbirth, and then the probability to have deaths are higher. And if you can increase the assistance, especially in these animals where you think and you are a clever guy, that these animals has a higher odds ratio to die, that you can have more pressure during this time, during this period of time. I'm sorry that I was some minutes.
If you have any further questions for Dr. Bortolozzo, please find him during our break. Please join me in thanking him for his time today.